Hello, I'm Mr. Jerry the Backrooms. Today we will analyze Unnumbered level, Greyrealm, domain of Upsilon, and the unknown entity Greyking-Unparalleled. Part 1 is Unnumbered level, Greyrealm, domain of Upsilon. Survival difficulty. Class dead zone. Environmental hazards. Strictly uninhabitable. Potential for anomalous entities. Level Upsilon or Upsilon is the 965th level of the pantheonic domains. Here is an audio of this level. Domain of Upsilon. Carved in ruinous stone, the blight of ages. Stagnancy to feed the pale lord. Stupor to see the bastard child born. See from this height, the blindness of men. Knelt before the throne as the sacrificial lamb. With half-rot meat as the sacrament to ascension. See from this height, the two faces of God. As mortal minds are flayed into numbness. Let the presence of the pale Lord live in you. Passage on the foot of the climb toward the peak of Greymount. The domain of Upsilon is a carcass-turned cosmos. No life remains here. The corpses that line galaxies are sewn into strings of meat that merge one world and another, forging an amalgamation of insensible forms that hold the universe into motionlessness. The stars that shone with ever-radiance are no more now but pale moonlight fueled into endless damnation to drift the empty gray cosm. No life remains untamed and unleashed. All are bound to the twain-faced God in perpetual half-wake slumbers. Through body and soul, all in this cosmos have achieved ascension in gray flesh, the greatest gift from the twain-faced God. But the birthplace of the twain-faced's bastard son who devoured this reality, lies in Greyrealm, atop the peak of Greymount. This world was once called Vuenia before the Pale Lord's birthing, and this very mountain that is Greymount was known as the Sunken Sky, a name dedicated to its highest peak. Now all of its past is forgotten in stained time. Once filled with blooming life, twice engulfed with half-alive corpses in the unholy presence of the twain-faced. Greyrealm is the origin of the concept of stupor, and Greymount is where the original incarnation was made. It was already predestined through the will of the twain-faced that a bastard son shall be born of its name. Without the pale Lord being born, the twain-faced will always exist in perpetual nothing and everything, asleep and awake in one. But through the fate of the pillars, it must always be, it shall always be, evermore and bear an avatar of its profaned form. Greyrealm itself is not supposed to be. It is as useless as the twain-faced existing, yet it persists like a parasite, absolute and irremovable despite its meaninglessness. And the pale Lord, the Grey King, his life is not to the liking of one such unthinking being with the purpose to drown everything in a stupor. So is this domain of oblivion, of disgusting mindless parasitism, that strives to be meaningful as to that of a god's reign. But it shan't, for not the Father nor the Son can ever be more than stupor-filled idiotic gods. Stagnancy to feed the pale Lord. Stupor to see the bastard child born. Part 2 is the unknown entity Greyking-Unparalleled. Text section 1. His Eminence enthroned on Grey Mount. From that age of grey, birthing of the dyad Lord. There sowed no life, there reaped no death. But from grey muddled skies, he descended. Forth came new, and heralded his crowning. The world convened then, like a herd, and came. Man, beast, God, had conceived his grayen flesh. And ashen so was his body, waxen was his soul. And from abrupt slaughter, all fell silent in stupor. The world had slept, turned pallid, under him. Corpses merged to form his grey gore crown. Souls dilute, melded to forge a pale sword. The world bore no life, nor death, but torpor. The world stayed still, stagnantly silent. Alive all remained, but mindless minds shaped their life into grey stagnation, and one became two. Became mixed with all flesh, to form what was ordained. The world was ordained, his voice ingrained eternally. To create a new world from the ashes of the past, Greyrealm. From his command came the mockery of life. Metal forged from corpses, bent and broken, grey flesh. The world was formed anew, and it became his realm. Pale were the skies, murky were the seas, flesh were the lands. And in the highest peak, he stood unparalleled. Paramount above all, his eminence enthroned on Grey Mount. Text section 2. Here did death die grey. The world would scarce be enough. So I reached upon that glorious star. My flesh ascended, willingly. And so burned, closing upon its radiance. The star waned, flickering, till it too turned grey. I alone bathed in its last light as the world plunged deep into eternal grey skies, and all was dark. But upon sight, I saw abounding stars, within my grey skies. And so it was, decreed from my eternal Grey Mount, encompassing. Let my flesh be grey and holy, upon this omnipotence, I command. Devour all that is, all that ever shall be, till all be grey from my flesh. When the time doth come that this reality be gormandized by my flesh, let it be written in monoliths of history, the herald of my emergence. I shall return upon the throne that was erected from my name, in the 51st domain. In that land beyond all lands, penitentiary and sanctuary, once reality ceases into stupor, and insensibility enshrouds all, may I reign undivided. Whence all shall arise from the stagnant cosmos, my stupor is the catalyst of life. For there shall be no brilliance, nor shadow, but the cold ash from dead stars. And from them, I cast life insensate and split their souls in twain, yes, divinity is twain-headed. My flesh shall think no more but know of their state, miserably incarnate. May their life be no more, yet still, stagnant and ceaseless, for it is within their strife. A strife of self-comprehension, of being capable of thought, that I reign in them in perpetuity. And stagnation feasts in them and settles in their minds, to be my flesh is wholly their fate. Within this pale cosmos, here, did death die grey, and of its name, I erased it into oblivion. Into obscurity, where in this newborn reality, death is no more, and stupor eternal evermore. One with nature itself, for I have rewritten its laws, eviscerated its reality from which all is now mine. Now stupor is the end of all, the stars whose brilliance will only decay into ashen corpses. The worlds who now only inhabit my flesh, the reality that I have conquered in its name. All is mine to grasp and hold, all is under my will of grayen kingship, reality is hereby of my name. To all that is left, heed my words, no longer divest yourselves of flesh, for it is now thy purpose. Thy purpose that is and shall always be, for here in this realm and beyond, all is my grey and flesh. Text section 3. From an empty throne come his emergence. An empty throne lay in wait for a pale king whose name is lost to time immemorial, and now he had come to remind all, men, beasts, and gods, of his grey and holy presence, primordial genesis of insensibilities, great monarch of Greyrealm, paramount king of all kings atop Greymount, grand dyad lord of stupor and torpor, and overlord above the grey cosmos, Eucraser Vuenia Iliad Elion. The symbol of Upsilon shone like pallid moonlight in the 51st domain, and so heralded his immediate emergence in that land beyond all lands from an empty throne. Not once had the domain ever felt the presence of the Grey King, less so the sight of his form, and even in times of prehistory, his existence was still a mystery. Only those in that pantheon of which he is a part had known, seen, and conversed with him. The Grey King had devoured the realm that is now of his name, the cosmos that he had stagnated into an absolute halt solely through his grey and flesh. And now that his realm is complete, thrown into utter, undivided stupor, he had finally returned to his predestined throne, one of many seats of other gods and goddesses as great as he, in the realm hidden and behind all realms. The domain entire and everything within it had ceased to move. This emotion that all had felt was like no other, for it was not fear, but the complete ceasing of everything, of anything. All were unable to think, unable to do anything from the great stupor that weighed down upon their very souls, their minds, and their bodies, the scourging of souls, the melding of minds, the flaying of flesh. These were the horrors that were done to those bodies that were the foundations of the king's terrible grey flesh, and these too did all of them, object or not, feel within the domain and beyond. The king stared uninterestedly at the golden-lined region. He felt chaos and order within these enclosed cages they call domains, and the Grey King felt disgust for the first time. To see nothing of his nature, to see nothing of the stagnancy and stupor of everything was deeply sickening to him. He scattered from the domain as quickly as he had arrived, and the control that was taken from everything returned to its normality. Perhaps it was not yet the people's, the beasts', or the realm's fate to become grey flesh, but they had now known of the emergence of King Iliad. Names and titles of the Grey King. He who is of many names, from all the words he had slaughtered. Eucraser Vuenia Iliad Elion. Yerkias Iliad Ilion. Verdun Usiazer Alien. V.E. Zerkia Lion. Julian of the sunken sky. Hiria Lion. Gahagor. Zlyani Aish. Zaal Puerian. Voth-Tathnam. Ruxath Nokgroth. Residican of the grey world. Kalian Zirjaian. Grey god paramount all. Demiurge of non-existence. The great stagnant. The flesh god. The ashen god. The grey cease. Lord of ashes. Lord of Gryan. God's bane unending. The grey star. The king who paled. The darkened deep grey. The old demon god. The lonesome. The pale limbo. Godflesh of the vilest. The grey and glorious one. Great monarch of Greyrealm. Overlord above the grey cosmos. Lord paramount of Greyan realms. Primordial genesis of insensibilities. Grand dyad lord of stupor and torpor. Paramount king of all kings atop Greymount. Thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.